Table. This is 745 Podcast. I'm your host, DC. Today we're answering the top 5 questions parents commonly have about public schools. Our guest today is Ambrisha Lewis, a curriculum instructional specialist in Dallas, Texas, and she holds a master's degree in curriculum with an instructional focus on literacy. She has taught grades 6 through 8 and is passionate about collaboration and open communication. She has sat at countless tables in various districts, working to ensure students get the education that they deserve. And Risha looks forward to working with districts around the states, consulting and supporting educators and administrators. And Brisha, welcome to the table. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, DC. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in and speak with you.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And Brisha is a good friend of mine. We go way back to college, and we kind of started our educational journey around the same time. So we're going to answer some of these questions today. But before we get started with that, and Brisha, what inspired you to get into the field of education?
So as you said before, that we started around the same time, and I was trying to find a space where I knew where I could make an impact, but also gave me an opportunity to grow professionally. So I went into teaching. I started teaching seventh grade ELAR. Um, it was definitely tough at first, but as I continued to stick with it and change districts, I was inspired, and mostly in the inspiration of understanding how when you work with teachers and you empower them, how that then has a positive impact on the students in your classrooms and then ultimately all over your campus.
Right.
So as I've gone through my educational journey, that's what really led me into pursuing my master's, being in curriculum and instruction. And, I was given the opportunity to really hone in on CNI once I went on to the second largest district in the state. And I was able to hold the position of instructional coach and really running that whole English department on that campus. And all that work and all the different experiences has led me to where I am now, where I am working in curriculum and instruction, for a charter district. And it's very fulfilling to be able to support students, but my impact is so much wider now instead of just what's happening in my campus.
Right.
By working with teachers and working with assistant principals, I'm able to not just impact a possible 60 students, I'm able to impact, hundreds,
Yeah.
hundreds of students across a multitude of campuses. So
Yeah.
it really gives you a perspective on how far your reach can be.
Absolutely. And that experience in itself is eye opening. And so, what's one lesson that your work in education has taught you about kids?
Kids just want to know that you care.
Yeah.
They just want to know that you care somewhat about what they are feeling, what they want to express. They just need to know that. And sometimes, as a child, you need that type of validation.
Right.
Um, and it can be something very small as, okay, yeah, I like anime too.
Yeah.
Or, like, yeah, M&Ms are my favorite candy as well. And you can almost change the trajectory of a child's future by just letting them know that you see them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of children,
Mhm.
we want to discuss these 5 questions because parents want to not only understand more about the educational space, but their biggest concern is my child attending a school or a school district that is best for them?
Right.
And this doesn't mean that the parent is perfect or, anything like that because they're
Right.
parents, they love their children. And so I want to go through a few 5 questions and
Mhm.
I want you to help me answer them based on your experience as well. All right. So the first question is my child getting a quality education?
Mhm.
Specifically, for example, how do the test scores compare to other schools? Are the teachers
Right.
qualified? And what curriculum and teaching methods are used? So if you were to speak to a parent, how would you answer that question?
I think I would say that the parents, absolutely have the right to ask those questions and to be curious about it. We really do want our parents to be brought into the process. One thing when I was teaching middle school, and it didn't matter what district I was in, a lot of times we start to see a little bit less parent participation when it comes to certain things on the campus.
Mm,
Our studies have shown that most parents, by the time they reached about seventh to about eighth grade, their kids are okay.
right,
They've been in school for a while. We got routines down. We know this. We got this. But in actuality, that is when our children are going through the most angst.
yeah,
Um, Going through that great area of being a child, but then also wanting more independence, wanting to, explore who they are. So I want to encourage parents to ask those questions and understand that there are resources for you to find those things out. We have open houses, we have school board meetings, we have meet the teachers, there's PTAs. There's a lot of opportunity for parents to connect to what's happening on the campus, especially also in understanding the academics, understanding the culture of the campus. We really do encourage the parents to come in and be part of the campus community.
right,
A lot of times we don't think of it as that being at a school, but it is a community.
for sure. And parents need to understand that there are ways to validate where their child is going. And so one of those places, very simple, it's a TEA website,
Right.
right? Where you can look up the scores of a campus from its previous year. You can go as far back as you need to go to see if there's consistency in the rating of that school.
Yeah.
And then that would kind of give you an idea if the teachers there are qualified, so to speak. Not necessarily saying that that score is only reflecting qualified and experienced teachers, but
Yes,
it is an
absolutely.
indication. Would you agree to that?
I wouldn't necessarily, well, there's, kind of a gray area with that, that
Okay.
we know that test scores are indicative of some things that are happening on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of teachers who are super qualified, passionate, very in tune with what students needs, and that doesn't maybe necessarily reflect on a standardized test.
Mm,
But I think when parents are doing their research, of course, going to TEA, looking at your district's website, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think also added on to that is meeting your child's teacher,
mm,
meeting your child's assistant principal. The
mm,
assistant principals work very close with their grade levels and also their subject. So if you really want to understand what's happening in your child's, primary math classroom, the best way to find out is to get connected with your assistant principal and those teachers. And
yeah.
then through conversation, truly out of curiosity and not out of, okay, what's going on here? Like,
Mm,
like a true,
vindictive or anything like that.
yeah, absolutely. A true curiosity and wondering how we can work together to make sure that my child gets the best that they're supposed to get.
Yeah,
We would love for you to be able to come and have those conversations. And you have people available who want to have those conversations with parents as well.
yeah. Now you make a great point
Yeah.
because I have seen, qualified teachers and low performance, um, within a school year for
Yes.
whatever reason, whether it be retention problems, high needs, a classroom, or
Right.
maybe the teacher went out on maternity leave and had a long term sub. So I would agree that there's nothing better than actually being a part of the school's culture. And I also would say, do not be afraid to change schools because a lot
Hmm.
of times a parent will stick with what they know
Hmm.
and they'll complain all 5 or 6 years, that they're in this school building and never made any adjustments to
Right.
either themselves as far as being available
Right.
or just changing schools altogether.
Yeah.
And as far as curriculum goes, that's a relationship that you really just have to have with your teachers.
Yeah.
And you will know somewhat the quality of teacher, based on the communication that you have. And I'm not saying, oh, I called you, didn't answer. I'm saying, hey, I asked you a question about what curriculum they use, what they're reading tonight, what's the homework, what's tomorrow's lessons about, how can I support them, and then you see how they respond to that.
Absolutely. And this is a working relationship that you're building with your child's teacher. Everybody's child is special, everybody's child is a star. Um
Hmm.
and you want to make sure that your child's being treated away as well, but also leading into that a bit of grace too.
Mm,
Teaching is a profession.
hmm.
Teaching is an art, it's a craft.
Hmm.
And so having that in mind, understanding is what it is that your teacher can do for your student and really approaching it in that fashion. Like
For sure.
you wouldn't go to a beautician and just assume that you know how to bleach.
Yeah,
Just please don't.
yeah,
y-
yeah,
you know, that wouldn't be the best approach to take it. So you want to think about it as this is a profession. I respect it as a profession. And within that profession, I want to know exactly, how are you able to take your knowledge and your skills? How do you hone it to what you're doing for my child? And then also, how can I support you? Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, everybody wants the children to be successful. There's no set of parents, there's no campus, there's no teacher
yeah.
that does not want our children to be successful.
No, I agree. Which leads me into the next question, and this could be physical or emotionally.
Mm.
So the question is the school safe? What security measures are in place? Who handles
Yes,
bullying, behavior issues? Is there a plan for emergencies, lockdowns? Um, One thing that I will say about that is ever since Uvalde, right, which was
right,
very tragic, districts have amped up their policies and their methods of protecting students. TEA has come out with new measures as well, and that requires more of a vigilant, vigilant behaviors from all staff. Okay,
right.
the way that you, I don't know if you remember, your teacher used to send you to the car with the keys, and you would prop open the door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and get snacks and then bring them back. Yeah, we can't do that no more. From your standpoint, how
Mhm.
did your schools handle the bullying and behavior issues?
Well, you know that our districts they take bullying very seriously, especially within that age group. In middle school, that's where we see a lot of it start to take place and where it could possibly escalate. And do we go through great measures to address student social and emotional learning and their social and emotional needs. Is just as important as their academic needs. So what I experienced a lot in teaching middle school is that we had a lot of counselor involvement, and also every district that I had didn't just create a policy, but there was a point to where social emotional curriculum was built within
Mm,
the day. There were times where there was something that I had up in my room. I saw it from a fellow teacher where you would do a social emotional check-in with your students, and it was something that was anonymous, well, somewhat. I would give my students a sticky note, and I had a chart, and it was just different levels of what we know our students can handle. Are you feeling happy? Are
mhm,
you feeling okay? Are you feeling Are you feeling like blah? Are you in a not so great place? And also, do you need a chat?
mhm,
And students will just write their name in the back of sticky, place it there, and as they're doing their do now or their independent work, I go and check those students who may be in the we need a check, and we would talk about it. And that's where you find out a lot of the things that are happening, which would include bullying and having that open door of communication between not even just teacher and student, but also having the parents involved in understanding what our social emotional curriculum was and also how important it was for us to bring it to the classrooms really made a difference of the things that I saw on our campus. I was on a campus where when I first got there, we did not have metal detectors. And then within my last year, we went ahead and brought them.
yeah,
It was something that I believe was a hard transition for us. However, we felt that it was needed.
yeah,
Um, and, to the chagrin of some parents, it was like, "Oh my goodness, like, is this where we are?"
right,
Um, But
I
if
don't
we
know.
can
We had them.
do right, exactly. But if we can take any type of measures to protect our children but also give us a sense of peace, I believe that we should do it. There's metal detectors at the airport.
Yeah.
There's and we may not know it, but there's metal detectors in other public places that we go into that we are not aware. There are security cameras everywhere. So we
Right.
just have to do what we need to do to take care of our children. And in particular, in regards to bullying, we always want to promote that this is a safe space for all students.
Yeah.
And when you really start to talk to the kids, maybe the one who is the bully, we're able to get to that root of that issue and we can work together with our parents to figure out how can we stop the bullying, but also understand how can we make this child better.
Right.
So I've definitely seen since COVID a big expansion into tapping into the social emotional piece of growing our children.
Yeah.
And understanding is just as important as the academics.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I would also like to bring to the attention of anyone who's listening right now that not every situation is bullying.
Yes.
You right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like we've got into a soft era to a degree. I don't know if that's just because, when we were growing up, we just took how it came and that was bullying and we just got used to it and became numb to it. But
Right.
there's certain small things like parents are calling a lot about somebody's bullying my child. And when they call my office, I'm like, okay, well, to kind of describe, what it is. Oh,
Mhm.
he took his pencil. And I just get kind of quiet on the phone. And I'm like, okay. And I'm waiting for something. And it's not to say that the parent's concern is not important because the parent
Right.
concern is very important. However, what happens is students who really can't even spell their name. And the first
Yeah.
thing they do is use that word. And now it sets off like an alarm in a school building. Kids have been taking their own lives, cutting
Oh,
on
yeah.
themselves. And so now we have to handle every case as it is serious. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
so I would encourage all parents to have a conversation with your child about what bullying is, what it looks like, and ways to address it or to at least let an administrator or a teacher know when they feel uncomfortable in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that way the student can start working through some of those things too. Um, so let's go to the next one, which is the plan for emergencies, lockdowns, right? I myself am charged with the safety on my
Mhm.
campus. And I know that there are certain audits that we have to go through that come from, TEA, Region 4, the
Right.
fire
Yeah.
department, and things like that. And sometimes I believe that some do not take the drills very serious. I'm gonna be very transparent with y'all. I'm not lying. And it's not because they don't think that this could happen. It's because we've went so long without any occurrence, or we do the drills, you know, um, and they know it's coming, and it's just another task in the day. And so
Yeah.
for me, in mine, I've made sure to make sure that everybody understands the severity of a drill and how important it is. And parents, I would also encourage you to watch videos on YouTube or whatever about emergency drills because you have to understand this. It's going to cause trauma to certain students, especially in the
Yeah.
pre-K, K area, right? When you get up to 7th, 8th grade, it's just like, hey, another drill.
Right.
But I believe, and whoever's listening, hear me good. If you do not have a social emotional plan after a drill, you need to get one. Who is the person, whether it be the counselor or anybody, who is the person that a student can go to after a drill that can have a discussion and let them know how it made them feel so that they know not to necessarily panic, but not to just live in fear, right? Because now the student is in the classroom wondering the next time their alarm is going to go off. And so I think we do need to put more time into, you know, the aftermath of a drill.
I agree. That's actually a very great idea. And like hearing you say that, especially for your little ones that are in school,
Hmm.
having to be acclimated to having to do a drill or and even just realizing that something could happen, understanding the true purpose of it.
Yeah.
And every district has plans, and every district has, um, a handbook describing on how they handle those things and what's their protocols. Definitely speaking to your children about the importance. What is this drill for? How should they be conducting themselves throughout the drill?
Right.
How their behavior and their action could, save their life or save the life of somebody else. And
Absolutely.
that is a very tough conversation to have with a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, even a 15-year-old.
Right.
I want all my children and all my teachers to go home
Yeah.
safely every single day. And so if that means we're gonna have a conversation or we're then gonna write down how we felt about it and then discuss, then
Right.
so be it.
Yeah. Well put. Overall, I myself, and I'm pretty sure Risha would agree that schools, for the most part, when I say for the most part, I'm not taking anything away from anybody. I can't speak generically for all schools.
Mhm.
I know where I work, we have security guards on campus, even at the elementary level, actual
Yes.
police officers and things like that. I would say that my school is safe. And the schools that I've worked at have been safe. Now, can I say that every school has that I've worked at has safe practices? No. I'll be transparent. But as a parent, you have every right to address those with the administrative team, going through those ranks like we previously talked about with Dr. Stevie Hart, and make that known that, hey, I seen a door propped open. I seen somebody walk in without showing a badge. I seen that. Don't just sit on that. Don't just
Right.
pass it off as if that's not your responsibility. Like, say something, because everybody in the school ecosystem plays a part in school safety. All right. But let's go to number three. All right. So, how will the school meet my child's individual needs? And we're talking, disabilities, English language
Mhm.
learners, gifted and talented. So,
Yeah.
how would you answer that question?
First of all, it's great for parents to be thinking in that way, especially when you think about your ELLs. We're thinking about our students who have other needs that are different from some of our other students and are gifted and talented. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that every child's needs are met, and not even just met, but also to the point to where it's exceeded, so we can ensure success for the student.
Right,
Every campus has a plan when it comes to each of those, and every district has a plan and has an initiative of how they approach those. Certain populations may be greater, and then there's even campuses that are full GT. So it's about, your research and finding out what it is that your student actually needs
mhm,
and figuring out which campuses are going to be able to provide that in a way that allows your student to grow. And understanding the lingo that goes along with it, understanding the processes that go along with that as well.
right,
Everything goes in a set order.
right,
So understanding what's your role, what's their role, even what's your child's role
right,
and how all of those come together in order to address the needs of your student.
right. And you mentioned something that kind of brung up this idea of just really collaboration. When your child is in need, even if it's not a disability, let's just say gifted and talented, which
Mhm.
by definition, gifted and talented is not just your real smart, quirky kids. This child just thinks differently. And so do not think because your child is not pulling a 4.0 GPA that they're not gifted and talented. They very well may be. There's children with disabilities that are gifted and talented. So that kind of goes across the spectrum. But for student with disabilities, when we get into the SPED space, the first thing you want to understand is, what is your child doing? What are they dealing with? And who do you go to for support? And you also want to have some background knowledge on what the law says about SPED, especially if your child meets the criteria of being in a special education program. Okay. I know for me, and I'm pretty sure you've seen this time and time again, sitting in ours, parents don't talk. When you ask them to share their portion of what they notice that's, at home, the parent may be a little, I don't want to say scared, but embarrassed sometimes to let you know that the student is exhibiting some of the behaviors that we're seeing here at school,
Right.
and all that does is hurt and hinder the support from the teacher standpoint. I've seen teachers that were well prepared to share,
Mhm.
what they noticed about the student and had data to support it. I've seen teachers that didn't have enough, and so that's
Right.
a problem. From an administrative standpoint, I've seen administrators that know enough about SPED to make sure that the meetings are ran with fidelity, and I've seen those who sit back and just type. So when you talk about addressing your child's individual needs, like Ambrisha said, you want to make sure you understand the criteria, you want to understand the law, you want to understand the research behind it, and this is going to take
Mhm.
some time on your part to understand that. And so, if you want to know, like, let's get past that, right? And you know that your child is
Right.
gifted and talented, has disabilities, or English language learner. Excuse me. If you know these things, they've been identified. Okay, now let's talk about that. If you have a SPED student, they have an IEP. And then in
Mhm.
that IEP, it outlines all the services your student gets. If your student gets some basically push in or support from a teacher while they're in class, then they'll have a number of minutes to do that. If your child is gifted and talented, they'll have projects that are beyond the scope of their curriculum. If they're English language learner, we have what's called PSYOP strategies. And these strategies support their English language acquisition. That means sentence stems and extended vocabulary and having a partner, right? And so teachers that are placed in these classrooms, they understand these things. It's your job not to only just depend on their qualifications, but it's your job to make sure that they know that you are paying attention.
Right.
It's your job. It's your job because I don't care how much a person gets paid, they're never going to treat your child like you would.
Yes, and understand that I know it could possibly feel intimidating or you don't quite know what to say. 'Cause,
Absolutely.
you just don't know. But please approach it with that this is a safe space.
Mm,
It is a safe space for you to express what it is that you're experiencing at home with your child, what you what you do know from what they're getting on campus, and how y'all can work together to make sure that your child is really getting what they need. Um, and I would say just approach it like that. Always go in with the we this is a positive. I'm leading with good intentions, and I'm also going in knowing that this is a safe space for me and my child.
I'm glad you said that. I'm very glad you said that because that goes into the communication between school
Yes,
and parents.
yes,
Many times, parents will come to the front office very upset that they didn't receive a report card or their child got hurt on campus and nobody informed them. I would say that communication between school and parents is a to me a direct indicator of the school year.
right.
And this is not to say that there will be times where you can't get a hold of an AP.
Mhm.
APs chase kids. We were putting out fires and everything like that. So there are meetings that we attend that we just cannot be at the phone
Right.
24/7. However, the communication should be consistent enough to where you feel like you understand what's going on your child's campus from the teacher first, and then the administrators, right? Because your teachers are your first line. Um, can what can schools or campus or leaders and teachers do to ensure that parents understand the communication channels and the parents feel like they're part of their child's education?
A workshop,
Mm,
just like maybe an informational workshop where we give a space and a time for people to write maybe some questions anonymously. You can submit a question through Padlet. You can submit a question through an email anonymously, and then we create a forum to where we can answer those questions
yeah,
and build an informational, time to give it out to you. It can be done in a newsletter. We I think the biggest thing is that our bigger goal is that we want everybody to be on the same page
mm,
in providing the best care and services and support for this child in order for them to be successful.
for sure.
If everybody if that is everybody's mindset as we are going throughout the school year, then we know what we have to do. We know the steps that need to be taken in order for that to happen.
Right.
And how are we going to come together and make sure this gets done?
And for parents listening, we do have certain tools in place for that so far, right? We have Class
Yes,
Dojo,
yes.
we have Remind, we have Parent Square, we have parent conferences, newsletters, open houses. We cannot depend on those as a school to being the only communication that parents hear. Parents want calls.
Oh, for sure.
A
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
parents do, right? Especially when something's going
Yeah.
on. And
Take it back
parents,
old school. And
exactly. Like something's going on with my child. Why you ain't call me, man? I don't want no remind. You know what I'm saying? I don't want no Class Dojo
right,
message. What's going on?
right.
However, I've seen parents more comfortable with Class Dojo and things like that on
Yeah.
flyers, updates on homework, like, they have this assignment today. So I would love for teachers to understand this. Everything cannot go through Class Dojo,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. Something shouldn't be communicated through Class Dojo or Google Classroom. There are some things that warrant an actual conversation, and
For sure.
some things warrant a face-to-face conversation with you, parent, and assistant principal.
Right. Right. And I've had numerous parents in my office, and they come in, I mean, hotter than fish grease, man. I mean,
Mhm.
ready to fight, but they always leave at peace. And
Okay.
that didn't start off that way, right? That's a skill that's built over time where you understand
Right.
just, from a parent perspective. I have three children, but two in school. And I understand when they sit down, like I can relate to them and say, hey, listen, um, you're upset that this happened to your child. And I always try to teach back, what they've told me to make sure I have a clear
Mhm.
understanding. And so sometimes parents just need you to listen. And so I would challenge teachers not to be be so quick to respond to everything,
Right.
especially in a negative way, like you mentioned, Ambrisha, coming in with this clean, my intentions are good. I just want to understand. And that's why this podcast exists to begin with. It's because everything that goes on in schools negative doesn't always mean that the school is bad or the parent is bad. It literally is a disconnect between the parent's understanding of how things go and the teacher's understanding of how things go. It's just kind of breaking communication. And so we saved the best question for last for those who love sports, and that's what enrichment programs are offered. Right? They want
Mhm.
after school projects, sports, arts, robotics, and theater. They don't want to pay for them, and I understand this is public school. You got AAU out there and taking everybody money, so they want to know how you're gonna get them home and things like that. And so, for me, that's a question that it depends on the district and the school that you're at. Um, Usually, there's no tuition with these things. Now, there may
Mhm.
be small things that you may need to buy, like uniforms or things for that particular sport. But for the most part, just to participate is free. And accessibility and transportation, that's also district and school dependent. Everybody, I know for mines, and you can tell me if this is the same for yours. If we have an after school
Mhm.
program, we do have a bus option after school. But that also depends on the address in which you live, right? Because we don't want students just walking long distances once they
Right.
get off, or the routes have already been established by the school district. And so you might want to look into like the daycare option if you don't have that yet, and things like that. And then also inclusive practices, whether you have a disability or not.
Right.
Um, you know, I'm starting to see a bigger wave of like the Olympics for students that have disabilities, and those are very interesting and fun to watch, and the kids are excited. And so, um, you give a different perspective on the middle school area, right? I'm more of the elementary space. How is what I said so far? Is that kind of the same?
Yeah. So, I've taught in several different districts, in the DFW area and all at the middle school level. And there are a lot of activities that our students can participate in. And we encourage that, school is meant to feed the whole child.
Hmm.
Not, there's the academic side, but we also know there's social. And, being able to have the privilege to be involved in an extracurricular activity not only makes you stand out, but it makes you feel good. It makes you feel part of something, and it teaches you certain aspects about life that you're not going to be able to get in your, seventh period social studies classroom.
Right.
So I encourage parents that if you and your children are interested in participating in those, researching what your child's school offers. If you're in a really big district, sometimes they have initiatives that cover multiple campuses. I worked in a district that had an esports gaming team. So like professional video gamers. And that just didn't cover my campus, that covered several campuses.
Right.
So, do your research, find out what's there. Also, in that, understand you and your child both understanding the rights and responsibilities that come with being part of an extracurricular activity.
Whoo. Man, say
Please.
we should not be watching your child to 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Yes. We get schedules out early. Parents are always welcome to travel to the away games. And, we have to come back. Well, usually you have to come back to the school, but please, come.
Please.
If we said that we're going to be back at the school at 6:30, we would love to pull up and y'all are already.
Please. I was coaching basketball and I had a particular student who the parent was always late. Now, this is the first time we stood outside for, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, called
Mhm.
several phone numbers and everything like that. Long story short, I had to take the young man home. And when I got home, the mom was pulling in the driveway at the same time because the young man had to show me, um, had to kind of guide me to where he stayed because at the time I didn't have the access to all of the no, his address wasn't up to date. Parents, update your
Yeah.
address and your phone number, please. But
Well,
anyway, she pulls up and she says, "Oh, where you been?" Da 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 da. She doesn't even address me. Dad answers the door. He's halfway sleeping out of his mind, and they kind of just took the kid like, "All right, man, get in the house." And I was like, I know you lying. I
yeah.
know you lying." Listen, parents, that'll get your child kicked off a team. Pick up your kids and communicate. If you can't,
Yes.
build a plan with the coach because hey, most teachers and coaches are more than happy to accommodate to an extent, but just dropping them off that ain't gonna work. Pick up
Yeah,
your
just
kid.
yeah, we gotta come to some type of consensus and decide how we're gonna do this. But understand, like, we want your child on the team, but we're also looking for a parent who's open and willing to have a growth mindset and also willing to
Right,
work together.
right,
Because like this is bigger than just we made it to the championship. You're growing.
right.
You're growing into a whole person, and it takes all of us
Uh-huh.
coming together to be able to see that to happen.
All right. And think about the future, right? Like Ambrisha, she has a BA in TV broadcasting from SFA,
Mhm,
Stephen F. Austin. And
mhm.
that right there is something that is not a sport, right? Like your
Right.
child might want to be a news anchor. Your child might want to have their own TV show. They might be into robotics and creating devices that will, play a part in the medical field, right? And then you have some that just, want to play chess and golf. Right? Everybody's not playing football and
Yes.
basketball, right? When you put your child in a enrichment program like that, you're opening their world to what they can be. Whether they go that route or not, you're giving them options. And so most schools have those. And I know it's a little bit different in elementary space. And we're
Yes.
trying to get better at that because we understand that due to UIL and things like that, there's certain things we can't do in elementary,
Mhm.
but trying to make sure that we at least offer them at the campus level, whether they're competing against other campuses or not, just teaching them the fundamentals. And so
Right.
when you get to your child's school, when you enroll them, let that be one of the first questions you ask, especially if you know you have a child that, has been kind of, showing some interest in certain activities. That should definitely be um, one of your top five questions. All right. So that's our dive into the top five questions. Visit your school, talk to other parents, and ask questions. I want you to make sure that you are not only sending your child to school but also playing a part in their life. I want teachers to be more patient. I want administrators to communicate better. I want everybody to get along as much as possible. I want to thank Ambrisha Lewis for joining us today. And, it's always a good time when we talk. And I hope that you've gotten something out of this podcast for today. This is 745 from the classroom to the community. Keep changing the game. AM appeal. It don't matter. Tune in.